In a world clouded by noise,
Truth is waiting in the quiet
it whispers.
until someone dares to listen.
She is the oracle, Tammy De Mirza, a world-renowned intuitive.
A messenger of what's hidden
She sees what others cannot.
and speaks the truths you have been seeking. And he is the master, Sifu Rafael, a master instructor, strategist,
A guide who leads with discipline
turning wisdom.
into action. Together,
We awaken what's been buried
we ignite the hunger for truth,
and we challenge illusions.
guiding you to your next level of power. Two powerful souls unite to awaken what's been buried.
To break what's been bound and to speak what others want. The oracle,
And the master,
it's time.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? Well, I say, how are you, knowing what you're going to answer, but go.
Exceptional and getting better every day.
I think you are.
I have to believe it as well. So, Tammy, I know that you're exceptional and you're getting better every day. What a pleasure to be with you.
You too.
And I love the topic today, right? I know
Yeah.
that we both came up with it. But one of the things that has made me think is if I was looking at somebody and I was going to talk to them about this exact topic, this is probably what I may say to them. There's a voice inside of you that's been right your entire life, and you've ignored it. You knew not to trust it. You knew who not to trust. You knew what decisions were not right for you. You knew you were meant for more, but you overthought it. And you asked for opinions, and you talked yourself out of it. So let's be honest. Is it about intuition or is it about trust? That's what I would say to somebody.
And then there's the opposite side of that, when you did listen,
Mhm.
when you did pay attention, when you did. I know for me, a very simple example was I remember being in Austin, Texas. I'm at a Thanksgiving meal at some big country club with who is now an ex-husband. And I had my sunglasses in my hand and I put them in the restroom on the top of the toilet paper holder. I know we're talking about the restroom, but this is real. Good morning, Mandy. And I didn't see who else spoke. And I heard that intuition said, do not put your sunglasses there. You're going to leave them. I didn't listen. And then when I turned around and I got out of the restroom and I came back to get them, they were gone. And you know what I said? I'm sorry that I did not listen. You were trying to guide me. And there are times that we do listen and we do it. So it's the opposite, but that's a good way, I think, to describe it.
Yeah. When we don't listen. Because we have a feeling, right? And you asked me, what was my feeling before my incident in Tampa? And I didn't have that feeling. If I had that feeling, I would have stopped and slowed down. Because a lot of times I will do that. Especially as a martial artist, I have that intuition, that feeling of when something's about to happen. It's almost like in the movies when the hero sees everything in slow motion.
Mhm.
And for me, that happens a lot. And I'm not saying I'm a hero. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I observe everything. I pay attention. And that's really what it is about, paying attention, isn't it?
Well, I want you to mention, since you mentioned your incident, nobody knows what you're talking about. So you're going to have to share it if you don't mind. This is real. This is real life, guys.
So what ends up happening I was in Tampa, Florida. We did an event, and we came back from dinner, and I dropped everybody that took a ride with me in front of the hotel. Then I drove about 100 yards to the garage to park the car for the night. And I went through the first beam. There was an overhead beam, and the second one, I only know this because I looked afterwards. The lift gate must have malfunctioned and it lifted up, and there was a big crash. And I look in front of me and I'm like, this, I didn't hit anything. I'm driving 5 miles an hour. I didn't hit anything. And I look in my rear view mirrors. There's no cars. There's nothing. I'm like, what hit me? And I look in my rear view mirror. I'm not seeing person. I'm not seeing a car. I get out and there's glass everywhere. And the lift gate had lifted up and hit that beam above, and the whole thing got mashed. They get the arm, everything just got busted, and it took forever. My son must have heard it because he ran over. My son's 25, so he ran over, and he's like, "Oh my God!" And there was a gentleman in the parking lot who was some angel that came along because they helped guide the car. I couldn't not go any further in. I thought I could go further in, but there was more beams. I would have kept hitting each beam. So they helped me maneuver this huge, massive SUV, and I had to turn it around and get back out. And they had to hold the lift gate down so I can get out, which took about 40 minutes. And then I parked it on the outside of the hotel. Some of the people in the lobby gave me bags because it was drizzling, so it wouldn't get wet. So I covered it. And now the insurance company said they're not covering it, and it's about 25 grand. Now, had I felt anything, had I even seen a warning light come on when I drove that 100 yards, I would have said, "Well, there's the lift gate's open." Or the door. You know, when you drive and you have a brand new car, it's going to tell you the door's open, the lift gate's open, the passenger door's open, and you get out and you close it. Nothing went on. So yeah, I have to, and because the insurance company, no matter how many times I've talked to them, they're like, "Nope, we're not doing anything." So I have to, and I spoke to a lawyer, and he said, "Well, it could be a manufacturing thing. It could be, things out of whack. So you have to deal with it." And that's where I'm at. But my mood didn't change that night. I parked the car. I came back around. I still hung out with people. I was fine. First, nobody got hurt, right? The hotel came out and cleaned out the glass. I parked the car. Nobody got hurt. And that was my main concern. And material things are material things. We've earned, lost, gained in life. And that's another loss. That's all I see it as.
And it's temporary.
Everything's temporary in life.
In downtown Greenville, Seafood, there are these bronze plaques and one block space. I don't even know how many there are, but you reminded me of one of my favorites, and they're quotes from famous people. It's quite interesting. And the way that they're placed in the sidewalk is it might be this way, or it might be this way, or it might be facing this way. They're all flat, they're bronze, they're kind of dark, they're getting worn because people are walking on them all the time on the metal. And there's one that is my favorite that is from Irma Bombeck. And it goes something like this. In my lifetime, I have lost more than 734 pounds on a diet.
Mm.
By this point, I should be a charm hanging on a charm bracelet. But that's to the point of what you're saying. These things are temporal. They're temporary. It's just a thing. And I love that you held your space.
Yeah, One of the things, and I think it's kind of funny, and I say it, and I know people who love cats will not like what I'm going to say, because I say if you spilt milk, get the cat to lick it up. And somebody said to me, cats are not allowed to drink milk. So for those of you who love cats, I apologize. It's just a saying. But yeah, if you spill the milk, either you can get mad, you can throw things, you can cry about it, or you can either clean it up, or it just becomes something on the floor that just people step over. So do the right thing, clean it up, or at least get the cat to do it.
Okay, let's get back to intuition. One of the questions that I asked you was if you felt anything right before it happened. No. Sometimes your intuition is not going to kick in a case like that. Sometimes it will. One of the things that I did many years ago was I took my daughter to self-defense class. I was hearing about 13 to 15-year-olds being vulnerable for being taken. God, my daughter is 40 years old. So this was a long time ago. And I remember thinking, what can I do on my part to keep me from having fear about her? Because we were divorced. Her father and I were divorced, and she's going back and forth between parents. I took her to a self-defense class, and I was already studying intuition even back then. And I asked the detective that was leading the class. He was telling us what to do. He was giving us techniques. They were pretty cool. And I said, I have a theory, and I want to ask you a question. And he said, go ahead. And I said, in all the crimes that you have researched and you've looked at and you've really, you've discovered and you've gone through and you've investigated, out of all of the things that have happened to people, where they're attacked or whatever, was there once when the person did not say to you, I knew not to go in that room. I knew not to go to my car at that moment. I knew not to go down that alley. I knew not to get out of my car to go to the bank. And he paused for a minute and he said, not one. They all said that. I said, I know. Not always will we get that intuition, but when we do, let's honor it. Let's trust it. Let's embrace it. Let's tap into it. Like me with the sunglasses. I lost my sunglasses because I didn't listen. We do get those nudges, not always like your incident, but look at your attitude. You're stable. It didn't rock you and your entire world because of that. And that's beautiful.
I love the question that you posed. Not once did anybody say no. Yeah, they felt something, right? An insight, and it's yeah, I'm gonna be okay, kind of deal. Well, guess what? After the incident, you weren't thinking of it. So it's not really about guessing or even being in tune with. It's about understanding why we get this inner voice. And that inner voice is always there, isn't it?
Always.
Mm.
Yeah. And I can tell you thousands of times that I honored it. And I can tell you thousands of times that I didn't. And let me tell you how I teach that at Manifest. And I'm actually going to be giving a free event. If you sign up, if you go to my website at tammydemirza.com and you sign up on my website on the 28th, I'm going to be giving a free event about how to tap in and trust your intuition and how it comes through. It's actually through the 5 senses.
Yeah, your website's going across the bottom, everybody. TammyDeMirza.com.
Well, it
Check it
says
out.
Tammy, but it's actually Tammy.
Tammy.
That's funny.
Tammy, right?
Yeah, but you've got Dr. Trammy, Trammy.
Oh,
I
that's
noticed
not
that
right.
last week. I forgot to say something.
That's not right. Let's fix that. That's incorrect.
Thank you. So what it is through your five senses, you're going to see something, hear something, smell something, taste something. And taste is more about the whole essence of something. What did that taste like? Have you ever heard anybody say, or have you said, that person left a bad taste in my mouth? That is clairvoyance. Isn't that amazing? So it's through the five senses that and feeling, you get these sensations, but in school, they don't teach you how to use this. They don't teach you that that's the biggest assets and tools that you have. So I'm going to give this free event just because I want people to learn. And I want to thank you, Sifu, because of this and us talking the last time we talked, and then we decided we were doing this. It inspired me so much. I'm like, I know people are hungry, and people started writing me and saying, hey, you're talking about intuition. And I'm like, yes, so I'll do a free event. It's at 7:00, but you have to register. And if you get on my website and you get on my email list, you'll get that registration link.
Yeah, absolutely. And I corrected it. It's not Dr. Tammy, it's Dr. Tammy.
Kara, thank
So-
you so much for saying that, because she's saying that by clearing the excess chatter in her head and being fully present in her body has helped me trust my inner guide, which reminds me of something I wanted to ask you about because of your mastery level and what you do. One of the things that every practitioner who ever touches my body says is you are so aware of your body. And I even had a lymphatic massage therapist that at the very first session, she said, you are going to be the only client that I ever have that can feel the lymphatic system, but it's going to take you about 6 treatments. On the second treatment, right as she got started, I said, hold up right now. I can tell you exactly what it feels like when you're activating the lymphatic system. And I started describing it, and she was blown away. I want you to guide us through your thoughts, Sifu, about why it's so important. And Kara, thank you for doing this, because that reminded me, I was thinking this earlier, about really tapping in and becoming in the moment of now, as Dr. Eckhart Tolle talks about being present in the now and really gathering the information. And for you specifically, how you learned to pay such attention to your body that correlates to the mind. And even after this accident, your mind is regulated. You're aware of what's going on in your mind and how this is affecting you. That is also building that intuition. So would you share some things with us about that? Because I know you have a connection that a lot of people do not, because you're so trained, and then you train other people to do it.
Well, I have a travel mug that one of my students gave me, and it says, if you touch me, your first Kung Fu lesson is free.
That's funny.
And so I had a youngster who's about 8 years old say to me, huh, Sifu, what does that mean? And I said, it's pretty easy. There's 3 ways that you can touch me. One, you can touch me and be inquisitive and ask me a question, and I will teach you something. The second is you can push me, and I'll show you how to avoid being pushed. And the third lesson is if you try to create harm in me, then that lesson will be deepened. And so for me, in order to teach any lesson, especially on intuition and feelings and so forth, you first have to be calm. You cannot have real feelings if there's anger. You cannot have the real feelings because anger is going to hide the real emotion. That's how I feel it. So when you are actually able to become, to accept what's coming, no matter what it is, then that deepens your awareness of everything around you. When you can take the breath and follow the breath and understand that the breath is not just breath, it is life. That breath that goes into me is going to hit every part of my body. And then that same breath is going to gather all the little toxins in my body and take them out one by one. It's going to gather, 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 gather. So it comes out as carbon dioxide. Right? It comes out in a breath, right? And so for the intention of my breath, the intention of the way I move, the intention of the way I think, it's all based on being present, like Kara said, right? We need to be present in order to be able to hear what's in front of us. And if we don't hear what's in front of us, is because we're not in the same room. That's how I see it.
I'd like for you to go a little bit deeper. How did you learn how to pay such attention to your body, what it felt, what the muscles were doing? I'm thinking about Leonardo da Vinci. I want to share something with you. I'm an artist and I studied art, and I studied with the most famous trump artist alive in our generation today. And when I really started studying people like Leonardo da Vinci, thank you, Tom Rua. I'm not sure how you say that. And Mandy, thanks for commenting. We appreciate, and I want you to go deeper, but I'm gonna talk about something. Do you know why Leonardo was able to sculpt the David at only 21 years old and really do it perfectly? He was only 21. If you haven't seen it, look up the David, the famous the David. He was only 21 years old. Let me tell you how. Leonardo did something illegal. He actually worked with a mortician and was dissecting bodies and paying attention to the muscles and the nerves and studying the underneath of under what's covering our skin. So when he sculpted, he had that basis. And this is where I think the benefit of working with you or somebody like you, Sifu, to help us to get more mindful, more aware, more in the moment. Whenever whenever Michelangelo sculpted the David and anything else that he did, he had the whole mechanics. And listen, he would have been put in jail if the authorities would have found out he was dissecting bodies and that the mortician was letting him. But what it did was it gave him this real life feeling from the inside out of what the body comprised of. So I think about you in that way because you're mastery level. If you were to say a way for helping someone to really start paying attention to that moment, I can work on your life and your physical life. I would love for you to help them with the body and becoming very present.
So when we think about our own bodies, we all have different bodies. We all have different feelings. We all have similar muscles, but yours may work differently than mine. You can lift more than me, I can lift more than you. It's not about that. It's how we intentionally use our muscles. And one of the deepest works that I do is the meditation part, but I also do something called internal movement of the muscles. And that's Tai Chi. It's also Qigong, Heigong, Neigong. I teach all that. And when we can start to understand our muscles and the way they move and to feel how they move and feel the power. Because if I'm going to flex my bicep, I can't just flex my bicep. I have to integrate all the other muscles to get the bicep to start to move. And so many people focus on one when there are many moving parts. And so when we can slow down, when we can make the breath and the movement work together, right there, you start to feel something. But sometimes we don't slow down enough to know what that's like. We're moving. We think we're in it. And every time I teach something to someone, they want it yesterday. They want to be able to do it like this. And when I say slow down, feel what I just taught you, they have a hard time. They have a hard time because we live in a society that expects us to move at speed that we may not be able to yet. I love the word yet. Yet is such a powerful word, but we need to understand it first. And so a lot of people try to do something without understanding it. So many people go to IKEA and they buy a piece of furniture that comes in a box, and then they go, I could put this together. And what do I do with these things? What is, this is left over. Oh no, what do I do with it? And then later on, they sit on that piece of furniture or whatever, and it starts to fall apart because they didn't slow down and say, hey, I don't know everything. Let me read the manual. Let me talk to the instructor. Let me ask the questions. Why? This is why children probably have the best intuition, because no one has put weight on it, on their intuition, right? So we need to be like a child sometimes and ask 1,000 questions, because we don't know all the answers. You and I, we don't know all the answers. But guess what? We spend the time to discover the answers because we ask what? The right questions.
I love that.
And that's how we get deep.
Michelangelo is turning over in his grave because it wasn't Leonardo da Vinci, it was Michelangelo. I heard that prompting. Amy, you gave him credit. It wasn't him, it was Michelangelo. There's a lot that I know about Michelangelo. It's kind of interesting, but I appreciate what you're saying. That really, if we did what Michelangelo did, if we did the study, if we in our present life slowed down. And I'm going to give you a really funny example of what I just did with a client. I've got a client that moved from Austin, Texas here to Greenville. What is really striking about this is that in the very first session that I did for her, which was over 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago, I said spontaneously, I do not know why, but I have to tell you something. And she said, what? I said, if you lived near me, we would be friends. 5 years later, she moved to be near me, and we are best friends. So we went out to dinner. I wanted to try this new Italian restaurant, and I'm working with her on being present. And this is where I'm going to integrate the mindset and how you look at the physical and how you look at things. You can do this. You can do the same thing that I did to her. We're sitting there and she wanted dessert, and I wasn't sure I wanted anything. Nothing really sounded that great to me. And she said, this sounds good. I said, read it and feel it. What? I want you, because I'm getting her to be present, to really pay attention to what the physical is showing her. How is this affecting you? When your husband is in a really bad mood and he strikes emotionally with the mouth, feel what that does to you. So she's sitting there in the restaurant, and it's a good thing that she had her back to most of the people because of what happened. She's looking at the menu, and I said, do not be ashamed. Just go ahead and tell me what that dessert feels like. And it was a different thing because it was a creme brulee, but a cheesecake creme brulee. And it had a blueberry compote on it. I said, read it and feel it. She started turning red as a beet. She got really embarrassed because it became, it's not that it was, the cheesecake was sensual, but the thought of putting it in her mouth and what the flavors would do and what the taste would do, and having a topping of the creme brulee, burnt sugar on top of a cheesecake. She's getting into that moment. And I'm just sitting back, I'm looking at her like this. And I started dying laughing. And I said, this is fun. This is fun. You are red. You are embarrassed. I don't want you to be embarrassed for feeling what you feel. Describe this. And it was a moment, Sifu, of her kind of coming alive. We have a tendency of just going through day after day after day after day. We see this, we see this, we see this, but we're not feeling it. And what you're talking about is a depth of becoming very aware of the body to where you know, and you know the mechanics of how it works. And when Michelangelo did that, he studied it so much, there was no question that he was going to make these sculptures for the Vatican and everywhere that he did in a way that was deeper and richer. And we can live deeper and richer. And you're one of those people that train people how to do that with movement, with breathing, with discipline. What I do is I work with people to help them to pay attention to what is the physical showing you that you are manifesting, and how does it feel? Oh, that's cool. She's relishing her hands around a hot mug of tea. That feeling makes you feel alive, doesn't it, Mandy? It makes you feel alive. I think the main thing that helps me to want to live day after day after day is having something to look forward to. And it could be a warm bath. It could be reading a book. It could be, I'm about to leave for Japan. It could be, I get to experience something new. I have something to look forward to. But what if you really went into it intuitively and you really started looking at, what does this feel like? What does this smell like? What does it taste? What is the essence of the taste? I can't smell in the physical, but I will smell when I'm in sessions with people when I need to, but they have to identify, you're smelling a cigar from her grandfather, you're smelling lilac, you're smelling lavender, you're smelling whatever. I have to be told what it is I'm smelling because I'm not familiar with the smell. But what if we lived our lives from that perspective of what Mandy was just saying, the warmth around the hand of the mug, connecting, really being intuitive is connecting. And we can connect with everything. I remember saying on an interview that I did with Angel Marie Monticelli, and I'm about to do another one with her on Friday or Thursday. And I told her, I said, we should be doing everything from a sensual nature. And she went, what? And I went, oh yeah, everything should be sensual. That is that connotation of really getting into it and paying attention and slowing down. I loved how you said that because that's a really good way to do it. Thank you, Mandy. You're muted.
I did that because I didn't want to stop from what you were saying, right? So if you can expand on intuition is knowing before you can explain it. For some people, they can't explain that inner voice, what we're calling intuition. They can't explain that feeling they get, why I shouldn't do this today. When I was a kid, one of my friend's fathers wouldn't drive. And my friend, his mother never drove.
Wow.
And for 2 years, my friend's father would not drive. And one day I finally said, because the kid always needed a ride from somebody, or
Yeah.
they had to take a taxi or whatnot. And so finally I said to the father one day, as a kid, I'm a kid myself at this point, and I said, "Why don't you drive?" I said, "You have a car. It's sitting in the driveway. It's a beautiful car." I said, "Why don't you drive?" He said, "Because I was told I could not drive for this long a time because I would get into a really horrendous accident. So I'm listening to that." I said, "Okay." I couldn't argue with that. As a kid, I was not going to argue with a man anyway, but I could not argue with that. So he was listening. Eventually, he did drive. He didn't get into a terrible accident, but he was listening to that voice that was telling him, "You cannot drive for this amount of time." I don't recall, but I know at the point it was already 2 years. And he wouldn't drive no matter what. Even if somebody had to go to the hospital, he'd rather call an ambulance or get him in a taxi. He would not drive no matter what. So, what are your thoughts? How can you help somebody understand that what they're feeling or what they're hearing is real?
Thank you. Because one of the things that I'm going to do, one of the first things I'm going to do on the 28th is to ask somebody what they are intuiting. What are you feeling? What are you knowing? What are you wondering about? And then we're going to go into that much deeper. But for the sake of the time that we have here, a story is coming to mind about me using my intuition. So I wake up one day, I've got this best friend. If you read The Inmate and the Medium, you'll hear a lot about Robin. But this story is not told anywhere publicly, and this is the first time I'm sharing it publicly. I called her one day and I said, "So, you want to tell me what's going on?" See, being a best friend of mine is not always the easiest because I kind of know. And so she was hiding this from me. And so she said, "What?" And I said, "You're trying to decide whether or not you're going to go, you're going to live, or you're going to lay your body down. I know you're in the middle of deciding that. And Robin, I want you to know," she starts crying. I said, "Robin, I want you to know I'm good either way. It's a sacred, private decision. And I'm good with whichever way you decide to go." I said, "But you've got to decide. You're at that point. This has been going on for 2 weeks. You're at that point. I can even tell you which two ways you're thinking that you will probably lay your body down, because there really isn't such a thing as death. There really isn't. A spirit cannot be killed. It's a matter of laying the body down in this lifetime." So she's crying. And I said, "Here's the two ways that you're thinking about." And then I said, and one of them was a car wreck, Sifu. And I said, "You were thinking about that?" And she said, "Yeah, I was wondering if I would go that way." And I said, "Well, Spirit's asking you to choose, doesn't care what you choose, but choose." And through a series of that conversation with her for about 45 minutes, she said, "I'm going to stay." That afternoon, I have to tell you what happened. She would go, her husband was traveling a lot. She lived in Panama City. And there was a restaurant that was kind of like Cheers for some of the locals. And it was called Triple J's. And they would go up there in the afternoon and they would have a drink, and then they'd go home and they would eat their meals. But they would meet up there. Quite a few of them would meet up there. Robin was about to get in her little, she drove a little Volkswagen Beetle. She loved it. She was about to get in her car. She had just told Steve, "I'm on my way. I'm getting in my car." She heard, "Do not go right now. Do not go back in your house." She did. She went back in her house. I have to tell you what happened. About 6 minutes later, the exact moment that Robin would have been in the exact same middle lane trying to turn left to go into Triple J's, Steve was watching outside, watching for Robin's little Beetle. There was a car wreck and a woman died. And Robin said, Steve called and said, "Don't come." She said, "I knew not to." And she counted the minutes and the moment that she would have been turning. I said, well, that woman today doesn't know it. She does now, but she decided to go. And she decided it would be hers. So I want you to know that having that intuition and trusting it, hearing that voice, some people say it's a voice, that's clairaudience. The way that you can tap into it is really through your five senses. You're going to see something, you're going to hear something, you're going to smell something, you're going to feel something. Every single person has all of these abilities. You have all five senses. Even me, who cannot smell, I can smell a rat when somebody's talking. I can smell a rat. So it's through the senses. And unfortunately, we're typically not taught about that. Each one of you have these, and they're supernatural abilities. They really are. Not one of you came in this lifetime without that supernatural ability. You have a dominant one. And if you want to find out what that is, go to freegiftfromtammy.com and you'll get two things. There's a book about this, a video book that I recorded in front of a live audience. And then there's a quiz to find out what your dominant sensory superpower is. When you learn what that is, Sifu, then you can say, okay, I typically see something, or I typically hear something, or I typically feel something. That is your five senses. It's so basic. And this is what I'm training. So for people that see this later and it's after April the 28th, 2026, don't worry, get in touch with me. I will send you the video. I'll send you the teaching for free if you missed it after the fact. If you didn't, come live. So it's really recognizing, how do I communicate with the physical and the non-physical? Is it typically through seeing? Is it typically through hearing? Do I hear things that people say that other people say, I didn't hear that? This is how you really figure out who you are. The most important part is paying attention to how you function. You know, you brilliantly were talking about how each of us has a little bit different muscle structure. Well, guess what? Giraffes and zebras, none of them have the same stripes. I found that out when I was on a safari. Each one has their own signature. So each of us has our own signature as far as muscle and muscle mass and what we weigh and what our personalities are. We're all so geniusly made, beautifully and wonderfully made. Well, then you think about your senses and how you receive intel, intuition, information. So I'm going to give you one more example. Look at Steve Jobs. Did he not see things before they were seen? Did he not see the iPhone, the iPad, and the Apple computer and all these things way before anybody saw it? That is clairvoyance. Steve Jobs was clairvoyant. He saw. So if you look around in your reality, is there one thing that you can touch that somebody didn't see before it became reality? There isn't. I can tell you there's not one thing that you hear or see that somebody didn't hear or see before you. So what if you use this as your genius? What if you realize that you have this innate ability that's supernatural inside of you that has a physical side and a non-physical side?
Without a doubt. I got to tell you, so many people are trained to seek permission, but they're not trained to see or hear their inner voice, right? And sometimes they're afraid of what they're even listening to. They wonder, they question it. And most people don't trust their intuition. And it takes them a long time to be able to trust it. And it doesn't come with a guarantee. either, right? So how can we get the guarantee, Tammy? What would you say to somebody who continually has these feelings, but they don't trust them?
I'm gonna have to share something that I personally went through. At the age of 11, when all of a sudden I had all these supernatural abilities, and I'm laying in my bed and I am remotely viewing my father making coffee, and I can read his thoughts. I can hear what he's thinking. I know I can see my sister. I'm 11, guys. You wake up and all of a sudden this is happening. My sister is asleep, and I know what my mother's thinking and how my sister's about to get in trouble. And then I didn't really know what to do with this. I didn't really know, with all of my senses being so supernatural in that way. And I'm laying in bed going, what has happened to me, and why can I see these things? This is about to come out in the USA Today article. But what happened was I ended up denying it, hiding it. So first of all, I want to say that every single one of you have supernatural experiences. Every single one of you have supernatural experiences that are unexplainable. But why is it that the world is not teaching us to hone in on that, to pay attention to that? So let me tell you what older souls typically do. And I've written a book on this, and I got another one that's coming out. We typically hide, conceal, and don't feel, very much like Elsa in the movie Frozen, because it's painful. We don't really know what to do with it. People deny it. People reject us. People don't understand. They mistreat us. They want to use us. We attract narcissists when we're older souls. There's a lot of commonalities. So the first thing is that every single one of us are experiencing supernatural phenomenon all the time. But who is teaching us how to tap into that and how to trust it? So let me tell you that I went through a period of time of 13 years where I pushed it away. I said, I'm in a dysfunctional marriage. I'm abused constantly. I've got to get out of the marriage, and don't send me anybody. Don't send me anybody to help. I need to help myself. I went through 13 years of not acknowledging anything that I had, including these supernatural abilities. And then when I came back around to it, I said, if I get mature enough, guide me back into it. Well, let me tell you something. I went through what you go through. Question it. Not sure. Am I going crazy? Even though from the age of 11 to 30, I was living it, breathing it all day long, because I was away for 13 years, which I really healed my life. And I started a business, and I bought my own home, first female who bought her home by herself without a husband in my entire family. And I have 29 first cousins on one side. I was accomplishing a lot. But then when it came to understanding this, I had to go from A to Z, just like you will, as you start to discover this. So the first thing is, you're all supernatural beings. You are spirit, mind, body, spirit, emotions, thoughts, beliefs, physical reality, not just the physical body. And so what happens is that when you start to have these nudges, as I call them, your intuition, whether it is through seeing something or feeling it or smelling it or tasting it, or whatever the ability is, hearing it, trust it or test it. And one of the things that I did is that I would test hearing something. Okay, well, if you really want me to do that, I even asked one time, bring me a wet newspaper in a plastic bag in the middle of summer where there was no rain, and drop it at my front door. I want the evidence that this is really real, what you're telling me. The next morning, I had a soaked wet paper in a plastic bag in the summer with no rain. I didn't even get the paper. And my yard was fenced in and gated. So I will tell you that moving to curiosity and starting to say, okay, well, if 3 people tell me this, then I'll know. I would say test it. I would say ask for evidence, ask for proof. Show me this again. I remember one time saying, I need 3 people to say this to me. I had total strangers walking up to me in a grocery store, and they would just say, when are you going to write your book, and walk away? And I'm like, what? Okay, that's number 2. You owe me one more. But until you trust it, you can ask spirit. Thank you, Mandy, for sharing. I can't read all of that right this minute, but thank you for sharing. Does that help?
Nice chapter.
That help,
Man.
sir?
You got to write it in smaller captions, Mandy, so we can read portions at a time.
Yeah, because we do hear what you guys have to say. So did that help to give you a start
Oh,
to
yeah. Oh, my
trust
goodness.
it, test it, get
Absolutely.
curious, get more into it, and say what? But the first thing you need to know is, and this is why I'm doing this for free, you need to know how you function. You need to know what your dominant sensory superpower is. And once you know that, then you're going to start paying attention. And I promise you, because I work with clients all the time on this, if you see things and other people don't see them, you're clairvoyant. I love what she says. It's as short as I can make it.
You know, a lot of people is when they'll say yes when they know in reality they should say no. When you know you should stay, or when you know you should leave, and you do the opposite. You have the feeling, but you're ignoring, and you go against it. You go against the whole river, if you want. You're swimming against the river, and you're wondering why you're stuck, right? Instead of going with the flow that's taking you to that answer. To Sometimes we just need to face it and go with it. But so many people don't want to listen to it. They don't. I think the trust has to be there. Do you trust yourself? Because hey, you know what? Maybe you've made so many mistakes, and then the mistakes are the ones that keep guiding you, instead of, wait a minute, I made a mistake because I didn't listen. I made a mistake because I didn't follow through. I made a mistake because I did what I wanted, not what I needed to, because I didn't listen. So every time you override it, you weaken your relationship with yourself. And the truth is right there. The question is, are you afraid of the truth? Like in 12, in so many movies, are you afraid of the truth? Right? Can you handle the truth? Right? So I think we need to get to that part too, because the truth really is listening. And sometimes we don't want to hear the truth.
Well, here's my question. How do you trust yourself if you don't know who you are? If
We
you
have to
don't
start
know
there,
how
right?
you function, we have to start there. If you know how you function, if you know what your dominant sense is, you can start there, and guess what? You can develop all 5. So I used to teach this course, and I would go around the room after I taught this course, and I would I'd say, can I speak to you? And this one lady, I said, you're clairvoyant. She said, no, I'm not. I wished I was. I said, really? She said, yeah. I said, do you want to tell me about the 2 times you saw your grandmother? You want me to tell you where you were when you saw her? You want me to tell you how long you saw her after she passed? And she froze and she started crying. She said, I did see my grandmother twice. I said, well, that's not the only thing you've seen. But see, we discredit the supernatural, the subconscious, the things that are otherworldly. We have a tendency to just want statistics. We have a tendency to just want more information. And now with the way the internet functions, which wasn't that way most of my life, we think we have access to everything. Well, the best access you have is within. the best tools you have. The way for you to be the most successful is through your intuition and tapping
You
in.
woke up this morning at 4:30, Tammy,
Yes.
and it was quiet, and
Yes.
there was silence,
Mhm.
and you were listening. And you woke up not because of an alarm. You woke up because there was a calling. Same thing. I woke up a little before that, but there's a calling that I listen to every single day, every day. This is why when you ask me, how are you doing? And I give you the answer that you know it's coming, but you still want to hear it. Why do you want to hear it? Because it kind of makes it real for us when we can say something like what I say, I'm exceptional and getting better every day. Because the reason I am getting better every day is because I am listening. It's the early mornings, the no noise, the movement, the training. It sharpens your awareness to who you are. And when you said maybe because we don't know who we are, that's exactly it. We don't know who we are. So how can we trust a stranger? We should never trust a stranger. And if we're that stranger, how can we trust ourselves? So stop being a stranger with yourself. There are so many people who are afraid. They need constant noise. They need friends here, friends there. They can't go anywhere without somebody. Some women can go to the bathroom without them by themselves. And I'm like, what are you doing in there? So is it hold my purse? What is going on? So what winds up happening is that we need to start to learn and love ourselves when no one is watching, when no one is listening, when we don't have to put on makeup, when we don't have to do anything for anyone else, right?
Yes.
That's when we can learn not only to trust, but to love. And the deeper the love you find for yourself, the less harm will come to you. And when I mean harm, no one can tell you you're ugly, you're fat, you're this, you're that. Nobody, because you know who you are. It's not about the outside, it's about the inside. And we need to get deep into who we are. And you did that this morning, my dear.
Yeah.
4:30 in the morning, it was quiet. You were the only one you can have a conversation with. And I'm sure you had an incredible conversation, right? Just the same way I had one.
Mm-hmm.
I started praying when I woke up. I thought of where I am and I started praying. I started going into my meditations, my gifts. So every morning, that's how I handle my days. That's why I can say what I say. That's why I can have peace even in the middle of a tragedy. That's why when somebody says to me, well, my fiance, she calls me one speed. I'm going to tell you why. Because I don't overreact.
Mm.
One day, somebody's arm popped out. Somebody's nose got broken. And I'm there to help them. So I walk up slowly. I'm not running. I walk up to the person whose shoulder popped out. And I said, oh, what happened? And they told me. And I said, okay, we can call you an ambulance or I can pop it back for you. They said, could you pop it back for me? I said, absolutely. I popped it back. They were fine. Everybody else around was gasping. I was calm. Another time, a gentleman whose father is a surgeon, somebody else punched him in the nose. And I said, and he sat down, had a little bit of blood and so forth. And I said, oh, your nose is broken. I said, if you like, I can fix it for you. You don't have to go to the hospital. He goes, okay. So I popped his nose back in place, and he went home, and his dad said, you got your nose broken. He goes, yeah. He goes, did you go to the hospital? He goes, no. My Sifu fixed it. He goes, he did a great job. You don't have to go to the hospital. And his dad's a surgeon. Now,
Love it.
I had another person who broke their nose. They were doing a pull-up, and they, on the way down, they did a power-up. On the way down, instead of
Mm.
pulling away from the bar, they went straight into the bar and broke their nose, blood everywhere, and their nose is crooked and everything. And I said, because he was a minor, he was 17, I said, I can't fix your nose, but if we call your mom and she gives me the okay, I can fix your nose. So guess what? Mom freaked out, ran over, got him, took him to the hospital, spent all night at the hospital, 8 hours at the, in between going home, going to the hospital, one emergency room, the other thing, then the doctors. And so the father eventually saw me. He goes, what a fiasco. He goes, why didn't you do it? I said, because your wife wanted to go the hard way. He goes, do me a favor. If my son ever breaks his nose again, you have my full permission to handle it. He goes, because I know who you are. I said, listen, I've fixed hundreds of noses. So he goes, yeah, you have my full permission. Don't even ask, just do it. I said, okay. Now, I did it for my own son. I came home, I'm divorced at this point, and I'm picking up my son, and I look at him and I go, why do you have a broken nose? He goes, because I was playing with the kids or whatever, and I got hit and whatever. And and at this point, I said to his mother, I said, excuse me, you're sending me a kid with a broken nose. Oh, I figured you can take him to the emergency room.
Oh.
So I turned around and I said, that's not happening. And I said, Giovanni, I said, you need to get the courage for me to fix your nose, which will take less than 10 seconds, or we can go spend hours in the emergency room. He was like 5. And then my other son, he's like, let dad do it, let dad do it, let dad do it. And this kid was not having it. So I said, okay, we're going to the hospital. In the hospital, they're going to make you sit, and eventually they're going to give you a needle. They're going to do this, and they're going to do that. And eventually they're going to do what I'm going to do. But we're going to spend a lot of time. I can fix your nose in 10 seconds, and we can go do things. So eventually he said, okay, do it. I did it. He cried for 30 seconds, and then he was fine.
Mm-hmm. So this is actually a good example of you fixing hundreds of noses, of using your intuition. When you
Knowing what to do.
when you start to trust it, you believe it, and then you just use it. It's actually how I do sessions for clients. It's actually how I read things for clients. I'm in business with a guy, and he said, I'm going to send you something. I want you just to feel into it. Within 2 minutes, I texted him and I said, okay, I'm ready. He said, how did you even get that? I said, I'm going to tell you what I read. And when I told him, he went, okay, you're scaring me because you're accurate. You're even putting into words what I couldn't even say, but I was feeling. And you said it. You said it so clearly. And I said, that's because I trust my intuition. So guys, what if you could do what I do? What if you could read? What if you could know, like Sifu, that he can fix noses? Because he intuited that he could, and he did. You believe you can? You do.
Oh, my camera. I don't know what happened here. But I'm gonna shut
That's
that thing.
funny. It just completely turned around.
Yeah,
Okay. I think
shut
we are
that off. Turn it back on somehow. Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can still hear you. I think we're at a good place to wrap up anyway, don't you?
Yeah, I think we're because that camera just went off.
Guys, it's so good to be with you. Come to my free event on the 28th. Join my email list and you'll find out how to register.
Yeah, and also I'm gonna put it right here, right now, and let's do that right now. So you can go to Tammy's website and do that there, register there. And in case you forgot what I look like, I didn't change. I just went dark. And no, I'm not in the witness protection plan. Just so you know. But my camera just said I had enough. It's
Turn
very
around.
dark.
Thank you
So,
so
hey, guess what? We're back in 2 weeks.
much.
2 weeks. So join us for the next live, which is going to be, are you ready for this? April 29th. Is that 2 weeks? So that's a little later, at the end of the month.
Later than 2 weeks. I think
Yeah,
that's
that's later than 2 weeks. So next one we're doing is April 29th, and then we're going to do May 6th and May 20th. So please tell your friends, watch this on the replay, and let us know your thoughts. And thank you for everybody who joined us today. God bless you, everybody.
thank you.